the packaging of FMK Part 2. So, as I was saying, Freddie Lee was every bit, if not more, well, I won't say more, but every bit as influenced by the popular media of the 1980s in martial arts, such that his concept of what a martial artist is, of what a martial artist looks like, of what a martial artist does, is completely 100%, I would say, or very close to, informed by that media. Many people have pointed out that it seems that most of Freddie's knowledge of martial arts comes from movies that he's seen, and that perhaps most of his actual technical practice of the martial arts is mimicry of what he's seen in the movies. And aside from the fact that I know he's read just about everything that has to do with Bruce Lee that's been published, I would say that that assessment is accurate. So Freddie is embodying this archetype, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And in fact, it wasn't as though getting involved in FMK, it wasn't as though I was unaware of any of this. I mean, this is not something that was going on completely subconsciously with me, that I'm only coming to terms with now. But I think, speaking about it now is, this is a first. I haven't really talked about it too much, but this was something that I recognized and kind of accepted because I could identify with that in many ways. Growing up, I went through a series of mimicked personages, really, that I picked up from movies and such, characters that I wanted to be and that I would kind of attempt to embody in my life. This is this is a confessional, and this is for real. It started off very, very early with the Bionic Man, and then there was a phase when I wanted to be Popeye, and then there was a phase when I wanted to be Indiana Jones, and there was a phase when I wanted to be a ninja. All these phases that I went through, and I can't, I think I'm out of that cycle right now, but all of those archetypes, are still the kind of, there's a conglomerate of all of those archetypes, in a sense, that still comprises the vision of the heroic character that I still, strive to be and look up for. I mean, when I joined FMK, what was going on in my life was I was turning 40 years old, and I grew up with martial arts. I've done martial arts, off and on a good percentage of my life, and I think at a certain point when you get into martial arts, you never get out of it. Even if you're not practicing it, it still haunts you all the time. And I was being haunted when I was getting near to turning 40. I decided to pick it back up. Went back back into Gohakukai training, which is a mixture of Goju-Ryu and Tomarite. But I'm really an autodidact, which means I really normally prefer to do my own learning. And even when I was in university and undergrad and graduate school, I went way, way far over and above the curriculum to do my own learning. And that's typically what I do with the martial arts as well. So when I got into Gohakukai, I didn't just go to class and do, you know, and learn my kata and those kind of things, but I felt I need to do much more, because just doing that is not fulfilling that archetypal vision of what a martial artist is to me. And so I was looking beyond that. And one of the things I stumbled into on YouTube was Freddy, and I stumbled into him via one of the how to do the splits videos, actually, and started looking at this guy, and I could see in him something that was very similar to me. And I still think that in many ways Freddy and I are extremely similar, and this may be why we ultimately clash, because we're both so stubbornly trying to be our own characters, perhaps. But you know, basically, I saw in Freddy, here is a guy who is it's not only trying but succeeding in embodying the vision of what a martial artist is that the media presented to us in the 1980s. And this is a healthy person in the sense that, I mean, in the body sense at least, because he's training every day and he's striving always to be able to do new things with his body. And this was a kind of a person who didn't care so much I don't think that now so much, but at the time, you know, I saw him doing kung fu dance and this kind of thing, and I thought, okay, this is a guy who's so secure with himself that he's going to be able to do what he's going to do regardless of how others feel about him. Now I recognize that Freddy has some very strong insecurities, but I think that's a topic for another video, maybe. You know, really the videos that I want to right now, the kind of discussions that I want to have are not discussions that are aimed at slamming Freddy, but really more a psychological self-analysis for myself, and what was going on with me with FMK and where I am now and what I'm going to do from here, as well as a social analysis of what was going on with FMK. And so this video, I think, regarding the packaging, is a little bit of both, although we have to talk about Freddy Lee in order to get there. A little bit of both the sociality and the self-psychology, or the social analysis and the self-psychology. So I think Freddy was highly influenced by the media. I know I was highly influenced by the media. I know that my attraction to Freddy was at least in a good part informed by that exposure to the archetypal martial artist that was presented to us by the 1980s media. And I suspect this is the reason why there were 27,000 people that tuned into FMK. And it was only growing from there, because it certainly wasn't for Freddy's actual combat proficiency. You know, and again, it's not meant to just be talking shit about Freddy, but I want to just say the truth here. Freddie was more into doing you know, extreme pull-ups and planche, handstand push-ups and splits, and really displaying dexterity and control with his legs than he was into doing anything that was going to be very combat efficient in this day of age, especially because one of the big, huge factors in this whole discussion, which I haven't even brought up yet, is that between the 1980s and today, our understanding as a culture, and I'm not talking about American culture, Chinese culture, this culture, that culture. I'm talking about, we have now a globalized phenomenon going on that we didn't quite have, well, not really at all in the 1980s, but today we are exposed, no matter where you live in this world, to a globalizing imperial cultural force. And part of that culture has included the popularity now of combat sports in a way that hasn't, you know, in an extreme way that hasn't been seen for a while. You know, there have been extreme combat sports. I mean, not that it hasn't been seen in a while. There are places like, for instance, I know of places in the world where there have always, you know, been the kind of violence, public violence that we see today in the UFC. But in the Americas, that wasn't really happening. And it has been happening, and at first it was introduced as a kind of a challenge to see which martial arts style is more effective. And you know, this was to prove the efficiency of jiu-jitsu, which it did very well, or Brazilian jiu-jitsu in particular. And so today we're living in a world, in a cultural world, that is much changed from the 1980s, and the image of what it is to be a martial artist, the archetype, and the understanding is much changed from what it was in the 1980s. And a lot of what was being portrayed in the media in the 80s has been amply demonstrated to be bullshit when it comes to real combat. And so, you know, this is all I'm getting at. You know, when I'm pointing out that the combat efficiency is not the thing that really attracted people to FMK, the 27,000 plus people. It certainly wasn't what attracted me. Like I said, I was turning 40, and my interest was in really regaining health, and it still is. My real interest is in health. I don't plan to be in a fight in my life again. If it happens, I'd like to have fighting proficiency such that I am defending myself very well. And I think that's what the martial arts is about, gaining that kind of proficiency. But I think that more than that, it is about health. Because, you know, the fighting thing is only really, it's a young man's game, okay? It's a really young man's game. But martial arts should be for life. And certainly that's the way I'm looking at it, because I've never had an interest in being a fighter, and of course at my age I would never even dare go in that direction. I got no interest in exposing myself to being physically injured. At the same time, though, I like to spar and that kind of thing. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting off course here. But basically, I think the message that I'm trying to convey, and maybe I should just close it off now because I'm beginning to kind of like stray off on tangents. Plus, I'm about to arrive at my destination. I think what I want to say, you know, the real message behind this is that the packaging and the 1980s archetype of what it is to be a martial artist played a huge role in the popularity that the FMK channel did enjoy. It had nothing to do with who Sifu Freddie Lee was as a real person, what his actual views were philosophically. It had really more to do with a guy who has his shirt off and looks like what society believes a martial artist looks like. That is the strong hypothesis, thesis, whatever, that I'm putting out there. I'd be interested to hear people's feedback about it, but this is something that's been weighing on me, that I've been thinking about, something that I think needed to be said. And I think, you know, in this case, then, like, we can look at this as an interesting sociological phenomena, that in this day of age when we know a lot more, given what we've learned through mixed martial arts, that this archetype is still there and still so strong, that it influences so many, and that, you know, it really was actually the fairly rare person, like Travis Johnson and such, who could immediately see through that and point out that no, this guy is not a qualified martial artist as we know such today. This guy's something else. And I'd like Travis has said, I don't think that issue would have even been brought public were it not for the negative rants, negative inflammatory rants that Freddie would go on against others. I think people would be happy to just leave him to play out his character and enjoy his own style of training and practice and all of that, but that he started attacking people, and so people started attacking back, and the people that did start attacking back, the few of them that were actually publicly doing so, were able to easily see through the facade. We're not enchanted by the appearance in the same way that I was, in the same way that many others were. So I'm putting that out there, and see what people have to say about that.